All right, so first question here is from Anthony, talking about the sweeper swap before 130. This is a pretty common question. He really values the vision ward early to track enemy jungle and protect allies. So I guess that's more of like a defensive mindset when we're throwing that out. As Hecarim, you sort of can do things early game, fight, especially with Conqueror and Ghost. But the general principle that I have, especially in the early game as a jungler, denying vision is better than gaining vision to pressure the enemy lanes. Think about if you're pathing towards a lane, the enemy jungler's pathing towards another lane, and to the opposite side, and then you see the enemy team ward. You can come there, they already know you're there, sweep it, and then that puts out significant pressure because they don't know whether you're still around or not. And then let's say you just do the crab and then you reset and then you go back to your camps. And you get some nice experience in gold. So if the only time you ever hold onto your warding Trinket is if you're playing like a weaker early jungler like Eve or for example, I'm working on my Diana guide, and sometimes against like Xin Zhao and Lee Sin, like these strong aggressive junglers, I want to be more in the defensive mindset. So it's like sweeper is when you think you can do things early game or like you want to pressure, and then holding on to your ward is like when you want to play really defense mindset. But as a jungler, you don't really need to play defense mindset because if you track correctly, you don't need to really play defense. Like you can just avoid them and just make aggressive plays on the other side of the map. And that's where Sweeper can really come into handy. So, I pose this question. Let's say in the early game, you and the enemy jungler are on opposite sides of the map. How would the warding Trinket be helping you to track? Because especially when you ping when the enemy jungler starts, which I talk about all the time in my reviews, we don't really need the warding Trinket. We already know what side they're on and which side they're going to be on after, So there is certain situations where warding Trinket's really helpful to like protect your bot lane from a gank where, let's say you finish bot crab. Let's say you're on like this side of the map here, and you finish the bot crab, and then the enemy jungler comes to the gromp here, and before you reset to go back to your top side, you ward their gromp, and then you get to see where if they full clear up again, or they're looking to like gank bot or like do dragon or something. All right, another question from Anthony. So this is sort of a follow up. But if the enemy jungler is opposite side, we can take their camps and drop a deep wall that will allow us some track in. Yeah, that's true, and that's a good point. That's sort of what I just mentioned there. The sweeper will just destroy one ward and let the enemy laner back off. Might even lose some tempo. I'm just debating on the first use. So, yeah, I guess Anthony here is not really estimating how important they'll just back off. That's actually really big for them. It really is. Which is what I sort of say here is that making sure the enemy team doesn't know where we are. The less information the enemy team has, the better. The more information they have, the better. Think about if League of Legends, if you could see everyone on the map, no one would like ever die to a jungler. So that's why I really emphasize the denying vision part of this sweeper Trinket. All right, next one here is from Brian. I think that doing Herald is a big loss of tempo after Platinum's 4 when the game state is even. Not in our favor. Clearing invading skirmishes seems to be a better spend of time in that situation. If you have no camps up, might it be a good idea then? Do you agree with this idea? So this is talking about Second Herald. Yeah, in general, Second Herald is like all your camps need to be off the map. It has to be 100%. You need to know where everyone on the enemy team is. Counter ganking, all these things that Brian listed are more important. Second Herald is usually there's a lot of other useful things, but Second Herald's very important if the enemy tier 1 mid tower is still up. Because we can't accelerate the game or progress the game unless that tower is down. So then sometimes you make that more of a priority. Yeah, because if you solo Second Herald by yourself, so usually you ideally do it with your team, with at least maybe 2 members or 3 members, it takes like a long time because it's really tanky on the second spawn. So in general, yeah, Herald, even first Herald can be a really big tempo loss. I mean, the ideal situation when you're going for objectives or making plays is all your camps are off the map. You have a pretty good idea where the enemy jungler is, so you're not coin flipping objectives. You got some vision control. All right, next question here is from Alistair. At what point do you compromise your target first clear for an early adaptive gank? Do you want to prioritize the gank or your early power spike and potentially risk losing parts of your jungle? My answer here was you always want to be minimizing losing your jungle camps as much as you can and must consider this before ganking or going for an objective. You'll compromise your first clear if you must react to a heavy trade and it's high percentage kill. Yeah, I mean, it depends what champion you're playing. So I guess this question is more about, if you're playing like maybe a 5 camp or 6 camp. It sort of depends, again, where the enemy jungler starts, so you know whether you need to how important the early gank is to affect the game. Let's say today I played a game. I played Diana into, I can't remember. I think it was a Nunu. I started red, he started red, and then I was on red side. And then he, because I knew Nunu started red, I had time, and I really wouldn't lose my bot camps if I level 3 gank top. And Darius had no flash, the enemy Darius, and I had an Aatrox with TP. So that's a really high impact gank because, and then I killed him because he's always going to be heavy trading because it's a Darius with Ghost against TP Aatrox, so he's an extra combat spell. And then I can't lose my blue side camps because Nunu's pathing up towards top and he can't get there in time. So, situations like that, it's like, that's a really high impact gank. I can't lose camps to Nunu, and also the Darius I know is going to be heavy trading with Aatrox. And I sort of hinted to my Aatrox to heavy trade. So, yeah, this is something you need to really experiment with a little bit. Sometimes you're going to screw it up. But, yeah, it again depends what jungler you're playing. Like let's say I'm playing Diana, I really do prioritize getting my level 4, 6 camp clear off. So, do you win the 2v2 matchup is another thing. If you show on this map, can you get invaded? What's the mid lane matchup? There's lots of factors that go into this. Another question here from Alistair. How do you, as a player, decide on characters you want to learn? Do you base it on part who you already play, or is it strictly done on I like X aspects basis, as I've been struggling beyond my main? Nidalee Kindred to find champs that resonate with me. So my original answer here was I find a big part of it giving a champion a chance. A trap I always see players get into is they start playing a new champ after struggling for 10 games, they just give up and go back to comfort champs. Yeah, I mean, I sort of really hate champion questions. I really just bad at answering them because I really focus on fundamentals decision making. If you really just hate playing a champion, then yeah, you sort of just got to find something else and just try things out. You probably, everyone has a pretty good idea these days around what every champ does. So yeah, I mean, think in aspects of it. It's like, do you want to scale? Do you want to play more early game? The Rek'Sai, the Elise. Is an interesting meta champion from the meta popped up that you want to try out. So yeah, and you have to give the champion a chance. You got to play at least 40, 50 games on the champion to really know if you like the champion, because it can be demoralizing to just lose straight up. It definitely is a little bit annoying when that happens. So, because you're like, well, does this champ just suck? It's like, no, well, mechanically you just don't have that champion mastery yet. Know when to use your abilities or not. All right, another question from Alistair is, I have been messing with Eve and I can do very well with her. It just feels a bit weird for me. It feels like I have weights on, if that makes sense, as I feel far less mobile. Yes, you do have sort of weights on with Eve. I find this with Kha'Zix as well, early game. You sort of just got to adapt to learning to play with those weights, especially in the early game. At the end of the day, the strengths of these champs are they're very good level 6 plus. So, and especially from Alistair, that previous question is playing Nidalee and Kindred more mobile champs. Every champ has their strengths and weaknesses. At the end of the day, Nidalee, if she gets behind, she's just pure damage, she's pretty useless, and let's say a champ like Eve, you can just be behind. I mean, your team can be behind, and then, you can get a few picks, get your Magi stacks going. You could even be behind, and then you start getting back into the game, right? Because you can take very high percentage plays with Eve. So, again, you sort of got to invest time in the champ, and a lot of champs feel clunky, especially when you go from extreme different play styles. We have some Diana players or Karthus players in Saltu that have traditionally really struggled to move on to early game junglers. I mean, I struggled this with myself as well. But it just takes time, just going to need to get used to it. And just let that, again, have a chance to let that process happen. So next question is from Joseph. Is there a general opinion about learning new champs in your actual ELO? If I'm learning a new champion, my brain is going to be occupied with new champ stuff. So this is the mental stack that I'm talking about. I mean, learning a new champion, I think on a Smurf account, or maybe in normal games or flex, like 10, like very minimal games. Like you should get the gist of a champion pretty quickly, and then you can learn the champ in your elo. I said, oh, that's sort of like my process. I mean, ideally you have a second account that's sort of around your elo. But yeah, I mean, you want to be sort of practicing the clear and stuff for a jungler first before just diving into on your main account, because you will definitely struggle a lot in the champion because you just don't have that. Your mental stack is going to be filled with mechanical things. You're not going to be able to look at the map, all that sort of stuff. So you're going to naturally play worse, as Joseph said. He says, also, last game we were behind and catching up, so game went on long. I had to make a choice between control wards and 6th item. I stuck with control wards. Was this correct? Is there general guidance what to do here? God, I can't even remember the last time I built 6 items on a champion, but control ward, I mean, sort of depends. Like, if you're completing an item, obviously go for the item. If it's like not a stopwatch, I think is good. I mean, your stopwatch will probably be burnt by then. You don't really want to build that on Nunu anyway. Doesn't really build into anything. I mean, if it's like the last fight, a stopwatch can be helpful. But control wards are, yeah, definitely very important, especially when that stage of the game for Elder Dragon, Baron, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, we, sort of depends on the item. I'd say in general, I really value the control wards at that stage of the game because it makes a difference. I always say vision wins games. Unless, if you're playing like Karthus or something, then like, I probably wouldn't be, if you're playing a carry champion, if you're playing like a tank or something, I'll go control wards. That's sort of what my answer here to this question was. Alright, that's it for this Q&A episode, guys, and we'll see you for our next one next week.